Ben, we have another question, and it is about vitiligo.
Okay, vitiligo is an autoimmune disease.
Okay.
An autoimmune disease is when the immune system, which is the best analogy is that it's the defense system, right? It protects us from the environment. It separates us from the environment. It protects us. The immune system ordinarily attacks the enemy, but when you have an autoimmune disease, the immune system attacks itself. It perceives the cells of the body, as the enemy. That's it in a nutshell. And the only reason that happens is because of the overlap between something you're putting in the body, once again, something you're putting in the body and a part of the body. See, basically, you're food. We're food. We're made up of the same stuff food is, right? Yeah. Protein, fat, amino acids. Once it's broken down, the immune system, the immune system, molecules that look like your skin or look like your bone or look like your liver are basically the molecules of hamburger. So if hamburger gets into the blood, big problems result.
Yeah.
Okay? Because the body will attack the immune system. One of the things about the immune system is it's intelligent. At least part of it is it's an intelligent immune system. It learns things. Okay? It learns what to attack. And when a hamburger gets into the body inappropriately, okay, hamburger gets into the body inappropriately over and over and over again. One time the immune system says, oh, enemy, let's attack.
Yep.
Next time it sees a little chunk of hamburger going in there, it says, oh, we remember that. Boom. And it goes out right away. It doesn't have to process. It's got spare parts. It's all ready to go for hamburger. Well, this happens over and over again. When it sees hamburger, it's going to be so jumpy, it's going to jump on anything that looks like hamburger.
Okay.
And if anything in your body looks like hamburger, it's going to get attacked too. And it turns out that there's cross-reactivities between certain foods and certain organs in the immune system at the molecular level. This is not a problem for most people. Why? Because when you eat a food, it gets broken down, so it's no longer hamburger. It gets broken down into its components in the intestines. It's no longer hamburger. It's glutamine, and it's lysine, and it's proline, it's all the amino acids, it's all the various parts. However, if that hamburger is not broken down completely, it will make it through the digestive system as hamburger.
Okay.
And it will get into the blood as hamburger. And the key is the poorly processed foods. So the foods have to be completely and the leaky gut and the entrance into the blood through the gut, through the small intestine. So between the small intestine and the stomach and the pancreas and probably the gallbladder and the liver too, the whole digestive system, that's where your core of taking care of autoimmune disease is. So for vitiligo, focus on foods.
Okay.
And focus on, you know what? Amanda, people are going to get so sick of hearing this because I say it over and over again. It is just the simplest thing. It's what you do for vitiligo is the same thing you do for arthritis. What you do for arthritis and vitiligo is the same thing you do for Parkinson's disease or Alzheimer's disease or any autoimmune disease or cancer or heart disease or anything.
Yeah.
It's
so basically,
the same thing.
You remove the offenders, then you start healing the digestive system.
Yeah,
you give
building.
You give your body the materials to break down things.
And keeping everything away that causes any distress in the body. If you want to keep it simple, anything that causes an emergency response is not in your interest. Now, when we eat spinach, there's an emergency response. When we eat tomatoes, when we eat anything, there's an emergency response. There's an immune spike once you eat anything. Anytime something enters the system, it's like fire, it's like MASH. Everybody's, remember the beginning of MASH where they all run to incoming, and the helicopters come and they drop the food off or they drop the patients off, whatever. And you know what I'm talking about at the beginning of MASH?
I do. I remember my grandpa used to watch that.
Okay. I don't know if I'm dating myself with MASH. That's really old. I remember when it started. Holy moly.
Woo! Just joking. Woo!
So anyway, it's like incoming.
Okay,
vitiligo, food, digestion, immune system, link your, try to find other symptoms going on so you can notice when they get worse. Flare-ups are your best friend because a flare-up tells you, if you link your flare-up to something you just did, you'll have a major piece of information. So look for flare-ups. For vitiligo, again, so I wish I could tell you there's topical things. For vitiligo, for rosacea, there's not. And don't let anybody tell you that there is. There is not. You know what Michael Jackson did for his vitiligo?
No, I don't.
He bleached his whole body.
Okay, yeah, he did. I just read something about that.
Yes.
Okay.
That's about the only thing that you could do if you want to treat it medically.
Bleach the rest of it.
bleach the rest of it. Now you saw how he looks, right? It's ridiculous, but you know, that's medicine's response to what is, because they're confusing and encouraging us to believe. You know, a true chemist understands this isn't rocket science. Right. Obviously, you have an autoimmune condition here. You don't have a topical condition. Only you know, but nonetheless, you still see topical remedies for this thing. So it comes down to understanding what we are, what our bodies are, and what our skin is. I don't think it's to me, it seems like it's just kind of like a, you know, it's not science really. It shouldn't be considered some kind of real high-tech thing. It should be just considered plumbing and engineering and how things are put together.
But then they couldn't sell us the medications that way. You know? So it does have to be mysterious.
Made mysterious. But when you think about it, it really, you know, shouldn't be.
Everything boils down to basically what we're eating. And since we're eating so much junk and food-like items, not actual food.
That didn't exist, Amanda, 200 years ago. That didn't exist 100 years ago. Probably 90% of the food we eat today didn't exist 100, 150 years ago. So what does that tell you? The body, how old's our body? 500,000 years, you know, depending on who you ask, maybe 500,000 years. And in the last 100 to 200 years, we've created this change in our food supply where 90% to 95% didn't exist 150 years ago.
That's really scary.
Not even vegetables and fruits, Amanda. In fact, maybe 98%. Nothing really, because it's all been modified. It's all been bred and it's all been changed. So, you know, to a certain extent we can adapt, you know, there's some adaptation that goes on, I'm sure, but not 95%, you know. That's why I say the less you eat, you know, and then how much do we eat? When you think about it, we eat for all these other reasons. We don't eat like an animal eats. You know, our bodies are animal bodies. You know, but we don't eat like a dog eats. We messed up domestic animals, but wild animals, you know, you ever see bears? They eat when they need to eat, and they're done, they're done. You know, they don't eat because they're depressed. You know, they don't eat a whole pint of ice cream because they're feeling sad about their boyfriend or their husband or their wife.
They pawed them.
You know? But look what we do. We eat mentally. We override the body through our mind. That's a great diet tip. If you want to lose weight really quick, and I was driving through, I was doing a fast drive with my mom last summer, and I didn't want to stop to eat. So what I did was, every time I was hungry, I put my attention in my stomach. And I noticed that there was no hunger in my stomach. The hunger was right here in this little circle.
That must be hard traveling with you.
I didn't want to stop. I wanted to go right through.
I'm hungry. No, we're not eating.
Exactly. I stopped a little bit for them. I did. I stopped. We stopped. You know, because they didn't want to do that. But I did, and I noticed that I wasn't hungry, and I noticed that the hunger was on my tongue and in my mouth, and to a certain extent in my brain. But most of it was in my tongue and in my mouth. And if I could move back to my stomach, there was no hunger in my stomach. Think about the next time you're hungry. Put it in your stomach, and I guarantee you, for the most part, there ain't none. It's probably saying, no, I don't want to eat. Sometimes I noticed that. It was saying, please, we don't want any food.
I'm going to try that, and I will keep everybody posted. It might be a disaster. I don't know.